Welcome to Generous Impact. This is Bret Brummitt.
And this is Amanda Brummitt. We are joined today by our longtime friend and colleague, Tawnia Wise. In this episode, you'll hear how wise resource development eases the burden of resource development for worthy causes and does it while treating all with dignity and value. Tawnia, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to get to Zoom with you. For those of you like from the Irving area, Tawnia and I have had the joy of working together on and off since 2007, 2008?
Probably.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, she worked for the Irving Healthcare Foundation, and I think I was on their board back then. And so anyhow, Tawnia is just one of those people that I super respect, and we've stayed in touch over the years. And
Thank you.
so, yeah, tell us who you are, and both personally and professionally.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on your podcast. I think this is just a great opportunity for you to highlight different nonprofits, and I'm excited that you are inviting me on. So my background, I grew up in the Denver area of Colorado. I was raised by a single mom. We lived in Section 8 housing on welfare and food stamps. So growing up in that kind of state of lack and kind of a survival state at times, I think for me, I got to see the impact of that on families, kids in particular. So I started to have a mindset around really wanting to have an impact on social justice, which led me to nonprofit work. And I always wanted to make sure that my life had meaning and my job had meaning. And so I really wanted to kind of go into a role where I could be a change maker. And after spending about a decade in nonprofits, in those roles, I primarily did fundraising, some program work. But in one of those positions, as you mentioned, I got to know both of you. So that was great and a great opportunity working at Baylor. But after my last in-house position, I really started feeling like I honestly was kind of getting demoralized by some of my experiences within nonprofits and really still wanted to make an impact. But I had, just wanted to do that in a way that I felt like I could be more capable of transforming communities and nonprofits. And so I did that by starting Wise Resource Development. It's in February, it will be our 11th year. So we're just getting ready to celebrate yet 11 years.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Just the existence of your company, I know, helps nonprofits a ton. And we're so excited. I can't believe it's been 11 years. Wow.
Yeah. Amazing.
So in that journey, when did you first start to dream about going outside of other nonprofits and doing something other than just taking a different, in-house job?
Yeah. So back when I was working in-house, I used to joke that I was a job hopper, but it wasn't something I was particularly proud of or happy about. My longest stint in-house was about 3 years. And in the nonprofit sector, this isn't really that unusual. There's a lot of high turnover, especially for fundraising professionals. I think it's because the nonprofit sector it operates from a state of lack. And one of the results of that is burnout, underpaid, and frankly, often mistreated staff. So after my last in-house position, or when I realized I was getting ready to leave, I had worked my way into this executive level position. And I just really felt like I was spending all of my days in meetings and they didn't feel very productive. I didn't really feel like I was doing what I am good at. And so I just really started looking at other positions and found that I was just going to probably end up in the same kind of situation or scenario that I was already in. So at the time, we had a couple of consultants that worked in nonprofits in other areas that we were working with. And so I started thinking, what if I could do that? That way, maybe I could do what I'm good at and also still have impact. So I reached out to them. And then actually, Amanda, I reached out to you about the same time asking about how do you start a consultancy? What does that look like? Y'all graciously gave me lots of pointers and advice on getting started. And that was it. So once I launched, I was just ready to do this.
Yeah. And I would think, to be clear, that I wouldn't call a job hopper someone who's been 3 years at a tenure. I'm starting to see, repetitive 9 months,
Mhm.
1 year, 3 months. Those are the ones I worry
Yeah,
about.
true. And sadly, that is just it is very common in nonprofits. And we do recruitment as, one of our services. And, because of the sector and the kind of burnout that is caused and just this whole underwork or underpaid, overworked environment, we really do not automatically discount a candidate based on these short time frames, because it is unfortunately a byproduct of the sector.
That makes sense. And I love that your time in the industry gave you that unique knowledge to use in your consulting capacity. So let's actually dive into the details of Wise Resource Development. Tell us what you do and then how that improves all the communities that you touch.
Yeah, yeah. So I love what I get to do every day. I would never want to do anything different. I do feel like, we create a safe space for other change makers like me to do something meaningful and feel like they're also appreciated and respected. We love developing other leaders that are in this space or in the consulting space. So we are nonprofit consultants. We specialize in fundraising. All of our consultants, we call them strategy partners, have worked in house in nonprofits as fundraisers. So all of our team members have at least 3 years of nonprofit experience. Most have over 8 years. And this is important because we'll never hire a consultant that hasn't worked in house before. We like to say we know what it's like to be overworked and under resourced. So we do grant writing, we do fundraising assessments, capital campaigns. I mentioned that we do recruitment primarily for fundraising professionals or executive level staff. Basically, if it's fundraising related, we support those efforts. And we have a specific specialty of working with founders or founder led nonprofits. And in looking at our history of clients over the years, 2/3 of them have been founders or uh, founding executive directors. And because all of our consultants have worked in nonprofits, we also have an expertise in operations and programs. This is really important because we can advise on all of the different aspects of a nonprofit that make it sustainable and strong and competitive for funding. So ultimately, people are coming to us because they need help with fundraising support. But in order to be competitive, their programs have to be impactful, their operations need to be sustainable. So we can really assess an entire organization and help advise on all areas to make sure that it's competitive for funding. So that is one of the ways that we are unique. And we also really approach consulting from perspective where we marry tactical and strategic support. So we never just bring strategy without being tactical, and vice versa with, being tactical. We bring strategy to everything we do. And that's important because I think some consultants kind of there's an idea that consulting is really like sage from the stage. I'm going to impart my wisdom and then you're going to do the work. We Again, working with founders, these are often nonprofits that are just resource strapped. So they need as much help as they can get. They don't just need somebody giving them advice and telling them what to do. They need somebody that's going to get in the weeds with them and help them project manage, do grant writing, storytelling, appeals, all of that.
Looking through all that you guys do, was it hard to figure out how to boil it down? I know I just watched I know 11th year now, but watched the 10-year video recently. Like, making that video, was it hard to figure out how to squeeze everything you guys do into that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that what we were hoping to accomplish with the video was to just really highlight what makes us special. So, part of that is the environment that we create for our employees and the impact that we we make in the community. So we really just wanted to tell that story and also highlight some of our great clients at the same time. But we're very proud of the video and how it turned out.
Yeah, it was definitely fun seeing, some of your clients in there. And then, but I'm also curious in that process, like, did you kind of get to look back and relearn things that you do or relearn stuff about your company that surprised you, like resurfaced or came to the top?
I think the whole 10-year anniversary, we really celebrated all 2024 for that anniversary. For me, it was such a victory because of how much we've grown as a company, not really as much in size of number of clients or number of consultants, but just grown in our identity, really solidifying our values, how we want to show up in the community. I think one of the biggest surprises for me as, entrepreneur or somebody who launched a business is how much I had to change and work on myself for this company to be successful, how kind of integrated it is into my identity. And so that was really a big just the growth of the company has been a growing and learning opportunity for myself and growing in as a human being and as a leader. So I'm just really proud of that, of all of that kind of personal, professional growth through the years and the, including the people that I get to work with, the leaders that we're developing, and the nonprofits that make all of this work meaningful. And,
Does
so
does
that I think, like I said, it was such an amazing year of being able to celebrate all of that.
doesn't it stink sometimes when you realize that some of the things that your team needs are things that are maybe not your strong suit?
Yeah, yes. As a matter of fact, that was really hard. And I remember when about 5 years ago, I reached out to an executive coach thinking that he was going to help me fix some of the challenges within the company. And then he started, focusing on me and, my role as a leader and how I was showing up. And that was really what it took was I had to change really kind of from the inside out to make this company what I want it to be. And I think that's one of the things that's really challenging as a leader is that you have to be so self-reflective and open to changing and, growing in that way because I think for me I found that I was undermining a lot of my own goals without realizing it. And so I think what's also important as a leader for me is that I want to really lift other people up around me. And so it was helpful for me to see where other people have strengths, where maybe they can, help lift me up when in areas that I'm not as strong in. And so I have a senior leader. Her name's Heather Quinn. She's our chief strategy officer. And we just make a dynamic duo because I do think that we can see each other's blind spots and really kind of step in and I think make each other better. Like as a duo, we're better leaders than I think independently. And so I think that's part of what I've learned is how you really have to not necessarily be all things, but you have to figure out how to how to lead in the way you want. And even sometimes that means that you have to get help doing that and be open to that.
I love that you feel comfortable sharing that on your journey. I feel like a lot of us that are leaders and have run organizations, we feel like we have to be perfect and that we're born knowing these things. But when other leaders share where they had to relearn or grow or back up, I feel like it's so powerful for everybody following in their footsteps to not be perfect and to be more open to coaching and relearning. And I've had to do a ton of it. So I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Yeah. We take that very
Yeah.
seriously here. We really see that, people don't just leave part of themselves at the door. So we want to really create an environment of what we call lifelong learning. And we really want to help support people on their personal and professional journey, knowing that they are whole people. So we invest a lot in our employees' professional and personal development and provide tools for growing as a human being and growing professionally. So that's really important to me. And so that's part of our culture as a company.
Yeah, definitely. And it may be part of the answer to my next question, but it's so important. I'm still
Mhm.
going to ask it. So I feel like I've known you fairly well personally and professionally and knew your character. But when I was researching for the show, I was looking at the website and all of your team's bios. And Tawnia, I was blown away by the vulnerability and bravery that your team had in sharing that they had lived in Section 8 housing, that they had been a recipient of public benefits and nonprofit services. And maybe as a kid that grew up in a rundown single wide trailer, it just spoke to my heart. But it was immediately disarming, made me connect with them, and just all the pretense that you would normally have in a business relationship was just gone. And I wanted to be friends with these people and obviously take their advice. So, my question in that is how did those life experiences in your team impact the way you do business every day?
Yeah, I love this question because I think it is so important. I think when you commit to a career in nonprofits, it's because you really care. And that level of caring is vulnerable and it is part of your identity. So, like I mentioned, you can't really just leave that at the door. Your your entire life is integrated, I think, when you do this type of work, and it is really personal. It does mean a lot. And so that's where, we want to help again create a caring environment, not just outwardly, but inwardly. And I think that's one of the most important goals that we have is that we want to create safe spaces for people and their experiences to be honored. And also, for us to, just really lean in to why we're doing this work. We hire people. We say when we say we want a caring culture, it's caring for our clients, it's caring for our team members, and it's caring for the company. So we're looking for 3 C's in that, and we really have individuals here that's where they're at, and it makes it an amazing place to work.
Yeah, that's beautiful to have that kind of stewardship in the community, the entire all 3
Mhm.
of the C's in it. Yeah. So, Tawnia, I understand that you recently went through the very laborious process of becoming a B Corp, a
Mm.
certified B Corp. Can you walk us through sort of what that entailed and why others should think about doing it as well?
Yes. I'm really proud of this. It took about a year for us to go through the assessment process, and it was intense. And there was a lot of you have to provide a lot of documentation for the assessment. But what we really used it for, and I highly recommend other companies going through this process, but we used it to really truly assess ourselves. So it took about, I would say, 6 months maybe to fill out the assessment. And it's something that anybody can go online and start filling out. And what I like about it is that the B Corp, what they are trying to assess is how you're showing up in the community for, outwardly, but also for your employees. And so I look at their assessment as kind of that gold standard of how you show up in a caring way. So we went through the assessment and looked at our operating agreement. We looked at our benefits, at our employee handbook, our policies, our procedures, and we made a lot of changes. So as we were filling out the assessment, we were changing some of our benefits, and which Brett helped us do. So I know you probably remember Brett helping us go through that because there were some things that we needed to check off for the assessment that we needed to know, does our insurance cover these certain types of care?
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm like, what's she asking this for?
Yeah.
Why do you want to know? Should we have an offline
Yeah, it was
conversation?
it was so in depth and it was asking questions I wouldn't have thought to ask myself. And I think really pushing us to think beyond just the basics. And so it took a lot of time. I mean, some of it was we had to get attorneys to help us change our operating agreement to state that our purpose is more than profit, that our purpose is helping support the community. And so, we implemented new commitments to give 2% of our gross revenue annually in donations every year. Like I mentioned, we upgraded our benefits. So there were a lot of changes that we made. So we feel really confident that we're showing up in our values. And in the end, we were able to get the certification. But like I said, I'm really proud of it because we did use it, I believe, for its intended purpose to really assess ourselves and to level up.
Which from a just not on topic, but off topic, from like a benefits perspective, even before that journey, like you were one of the examples I would use when someone asks about how to take care of their staff. And I'm like, I have this one client and she thinks of it in that way, that she's looking to take care of the staff, not only today, but in the future too. And, so even before that process, I don't know that it was that big of a change from what you intended to do to like having to get it documented and go through that assessment.
Yeah, that's what I think to me, it was really great about it was that it really gave me a lens through which to make sure that I was doing what I wanted to do, which is show up for our employees and be a sustainable company. And kind of through that process, it also helped me. I've been really trying to create the infrastructure for sustainability as a company so that, we can not just scale, but also, outlive me. So there was a lot of kind of succession planning that went into this, a lot of, you know, just thinking through what happens to the company if something happens to me and who steps in and how does that work. And so getting all of that lined out was, I think, something that was integrated into the B Corp assessment.
Yeah. And probably right back to if you work with nonprofits that start from founder vision, this is not something that's unique to the conversation, but doing it for yourself is also super critical.
Yeah, I think that's what's been really interesting to me is I am a founder. We work with founders, and just really recognizing that I think founder mentality is like you want to create a legacy and a legacy is something that outlives yourself. So what does that really look like and how do you put that into place? So I feel like I learned a lot of interesting lessons the hard way as building out the company and putting in that type of infrastructure to be sustainable. And it helps us in the way that we support our clients as well, because many grassroots nonprofits don't have succession plans. They don't have a lot of their infrastructure in place to be sustainable. So that's just another way that we're supporting them and advising them.
Yeah. All right. So if you get to look forward in the future now for the 5 years from now, what are some of the new accomplishments that you think you'll get to say that your team and you had?
Yeah. So I mentioned scaling. We are really working on all of the processes, procedures. Developing leaders is a big part of that. That's been huge for us, but you really need to have a strong leadership in place to scale. I have said since the beginning of starting this company that I don't want to grow just for the sake of growing, especially if that sacrifices quality of service or work product. We won't do that. So we are really trying to create that infrastructure so that we can scale and do that in a way that we don't lose what makes us special. And a lot of big part of that is excellence of our work product and our service. So it's a lot of how do we scale our onboarding, training, coaching, leveling up new staff. That's a big part of it. And what we're really looking at is every single thing that we do that is kind of gut, that we're operating on gut. We realize gut's not scalable. So how do we create, or how do we, develop a methodology, a tool, training, whatever we need to do to make sure that we can scale that. So that's really where we're at right now. I would love in 5 years for us to have grown to in a way that we can have greater impact in the community, be able to serve more nonprofits.
Yeah. And then, going back through kind of, I mean, culture seems to be a word that could be spliced into what you're talking about, but getting back out of just culture, but like a process of documentation, training, really indoctrinating the
Uh-huh.
groupthink almost through process. I guess I'm sure so many people just skip right to the end and
Yeah.
forget about that and just throw caution and hope it works out.
Yeah.
So kudos for going
Thank
through
you.
that
I'm
process.
I'm glad you said that because I do find that whenever somebody starts talking to me about my staff's not listening to me or they're not following through or anything about quality of work, just there are so many things that are tied to culture. I always take it back to how you develop the culture that you're looking for. And I think I'm surprised at how much of a disconnect there is. That I think people don't understand culture is the foundation of everything. So if your culture's not where you want it to be or need it to be, it will undermine every other thing that you're trying to accomplish. So that is something that we had to really learn the hard way is we had to step back and get really clear on our values as a company and how we were going to establish that culture and look at every single thing we were doing as a company to make sure we were reinforcing the culture we want to have. So I absolutely agree with you. I think that is really often overlooked at as what a core and essential element that is to success.
Yeah. All right. So curious to get down that, I'm going to switch the question up, but to get to that process, are there other outside resources that you use to help get you to that end outside of the B Corporation that would be useful for others?
Absolutely. I am a diehard around coaching. We actually have two coaches. One is our leadership coach around personal and professional development. We do quarterly in-person trainings. We have books that we read that we have required reading around listening, accepting, and giving feedback. We also use a couple of tools, Enneagram, and we also use positive intelligence. So if you haven't heard of those tools, I highly recommend them. We integrate them into really everything we do from a leadership and culture perspective. I also have we have a second coach that we work with, and she provides that organization. It's called Shipco. And I highly recommend any business owners to join. It's a really robust, I would say, not just coaching, but lots of training around every phase of the business. And so whatever phase you're in, there's a pathway and coaching associated with it. And we've been utilizing both Shipco and then John Payne, our journey coach, for the last 5 to 6 years. And I would say I credit all of these resources for making us better and stronger. And I think what's great about Shipco is that's more strategic. We get a lot more strategic business, I think, strategy or training and, coaching. So the work that we do with them has revolutionized the way that we do our performance management system and some other types of infrastructure, financial systems. So that's a lot more kind of strategic and tactical, but we work with
Mhm.
both of them on a leadership basis.
Nice. All right. So now to the question that I gave you a hint of previously. What outside organizations do you look at for inspiration that aren't your two coaching organizations that may not be applicable to others, but are personal to you?
I really have to go back to our clients. I just think we are so lucky to be working with the nonprofits that we get to work with. And it's so inspiring to meet individuals who see a community need and they just start meeting it. Most often, not making any money. They're just doing it usually on the side, just trying to basically a second job on top of the job that they have. And they're just meeting the need. And, what we love to do is step in and help them figure out how to make that a financially viable endeavor. But the passion,
Mhm.
just the drive that they have is that's inspiring. And we just love working with founders that are excited about what they do. They're very dedicated and they come to us and they realize that they don't necessarily know how to run a nonprofit, but they have, the passion, they're ready to do the work. We can come in alongside them and kind of help them get to understand maybe what they don't really yet know about nonprofit management. We love partnering with nonprofits like that. We find so much joy and inspiration daily. And if you saw our team's threads, you would see we're constantly shouting out and rejoicing with the wins that they have. And, the fact that we get to walk alongside that and be part of that is huge for us.
All right. So if somebody wants to help or give back to Wise Resource Development or any of their clients, what would be your suggestions for ways that our community can help give back to you guys for all the efforts you're doing on behalf of others?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I would say, if you know any great fundraising professionals, please send them our way. We're always hiring strategy partners. We've had the fortunate, I guess, challenge of always having more work than we have consultants to support. So we're always hiring, always looking for great people. So if you know somebody, please send them our way. That's one way to help. I would also just say, you know, I would love to see really everybody becoming more knowledgeable about the community that they live in and ways that they can support the community. And also just
Mhm.
really, I think, understanding how nonprofit sector works is beneficial to those individuals who are really working so hard to impact the community with, very little resources, often minimal appreciation, just really feeling dedicated and pouring themselves into the work. I would love to see a change in the nonprofit sector around just paying better, work cultures and environments. And I think a lot of that starts with donors having a better understanding of their investment. And when you're investing in a nonprofit as a donor, recognizing that you're investing in people because people are what makes it happen. So this whole concept around, I don't want to pay for staff or overhead, to me is one of the most bizarre mindsets that's out there, because who do you think is doing the work? So, and if it's a mission that you care about, wouldn't you want the best, people, the most qualified, the most capable doing the work? Well, they also need to make a living and support their families. So I just think that there's a paradigm shift that I would love to see just the greater community to have, because those are the individuals that are, I think donors are often the ones that can really drive change within the nonprofit sector.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And, beyond today, just your friendship is fantastic. And so very much appreciated, gratitude for that. But thanks for sharing with our audience, and thanks for, being so vulnerable. So really appreciate your
Thank
time
you. This
today.
is really fun. I appreciate hanging out with you both, and thanks for having me on.
Wow, I feel like I just came from a mini conference on how to run a great company. Tawnia shared such good insight on culture and doing right by all stakeholders. And while that's incredible for their company, it's also amplified by the output of every nonprofit they help. If you're running a nonprofit, you want to know Tawnia, I promise. Check out her book, Become a Nonprofit Pro, and find the company at wiseresourcedevelopment.com. And for all the rest of us, I hope Tawnia inspired us to get to know the nonprofits in our communities and see where we can lend a hand.